Hey everyone, so David Mayer from the Telegram sat down and had an interview with Mr. Maxime Bernier, the leader of the PPC, in regards to how he wants to do politics in this country differently. So I'm going to be reading from this article and find out exactly what he had to say as a response. Headline out of the Telegram: People's Party leader Maxime Bernier wants less federal government, more pipelines, fewer immigrants. Like I said, it's been reported by David Mayer, March 1st, 2019. Maxime Bernier says it's time for the federal government to stop giving money to the provinces for health care, to start building pipelines by any means necessary, and to reduce the number of immigrants finding a new home in Canada. Bernier, leader of the newly formed People's Party of Canada, sat down with the editorial board of the Telegram on Friday afternoon to explain the party's plan for how the federal government should function. Bernier says among his priorities is completely reforming the equalization formula. Currently, this province does not make any money from equalization payments due to far higher natural resource revenue than in other provinces per capita. Quebec, where Bernier serves as member of parliament for Beauce, sees $11.7 billion in equalization payments. Bernier says the conversation in Quebec is starting to change about equalization payments, which means there's an opportunity to make large changes. Well, I mean, wealth or income transfers, right? Which is what you're talking about today. These transfer payments is, you're taking from the prosperous people, because provinces, that's just soil, right? It's just dirt. Like, the soil's not doing anything other than being soil, right? Or the oil, it's not extracting itself. And so basically what you're talking about when you're talking about provinces, you're talking about there's productive people that are working hard in the private sector, because those are people that actually produce everything, right? Those are the people that actually grow the economy, unlike, I know a lot of people out there might not understand that because you've been told that government somehow creates jobs. No, government's not a job creator, okay? Government is that entity that takes from the productive class, folks. And if you don't understand that, well, your education system and those around you have failed you severely, right? But basically what you're talking about when you're talking about transfer payments is you're taking from the productive people in particular provinces that have some resources, like they're suggesting here, like places like Alberta, where they can be economically viable. And what they do is, because Canada's, to me, it's like, we're so close to a full-on socialist country. It's like, how do we know that we're not at this point in time? Well, I guess there's still a couple little segments, I guess, where there's some little bit of free market. So I guess we can claim that we're not a full-on centrally planned economy, but damn, we're mighty close, folks. But when you can steal and plunder the economic prosperity and incomes of the productive people to give to the non-productive people, especially the parasites in government, wow, like, where's the incentive for these people to ever step up the plate and do anything productive on their own if they just constantly keep getting handouts? And I'm someone from New Brunswick. I have not province for so fucking long now. I think that's all it's ever known. I've watched that province go from, even when I was growing up, like I say, I was born in 1970. Even in the 70s and 80s, folks, some of those small communities in New Brunswick were very viable. They had self-sustaining businesses and communities, and things were much more prosperous. People were much more prosperous. People were much more wealthy, actually, believe it or not, in comparison to now, in regards to the economic growth. I mean, back then it wasn't that difficult for a typical blue-collar guy to go out and get a decent paying job that he could use to take care of not just himself, but to even start and maintain and sustain an entire family. You try to do that today with a single person's income, well, you better be one of those people that are considered what? The upper middle class? That's about it. Otherwise, it's going to take a couple of you to try to do or accomplish the same thing that one person could do just a few decades ago. I mean, come on, theft or forced income redistribution, that's a terrible model, whether it's for business or even politics, because it destroys proper and natural incentives. The Quebec government doesn't have an incentive to change their policies at the provincial level. Hydroelectricity, for example, it's not fully part of the equalization formula. Energy come from oil and gas is part of the formula. It's not fair, said Bernier. I'm saying that we must change the formula, but I'm adding we must be less generous. Bernier says he would start a review of the equalization formula to reduce it and find a way to more equally distribute the money. The Parliamentary Budget Office, an independent budget watchdog, recommended changes to the formula last fall that could have seen $560 million more equalization flowing to Newfoundland and Labrador. The federal government later opted not to make any changes to the formula. On immigration, Bernier wants fewer immigrants, but wants a priority on economic immigrants. Immigrants who he says have a better chance of immediately gaining employment in their new home. Well, this is one area that I will disagree with Mr. Bernier here is, listen, we have a large, substantial portion of the domestic population in this country. That's the thing. Bernier, you know this stuff. Hello? It's not even about the unemployment numbers. You know there's a substantial portion of the population that's not even included in that. And that's that 30+ % of Canadians who aren't even participating in the labor force. I mean, come on, folks. There's 30% of the population that's 15 or older that don't even participate in the workforce. So do we really need economic migrants? Well, I mean, I guess if you're too inept or too lazy or too unwilling to get your kid that's living in the basement at 25, 30 years old to go out and get a fucking job, I guess if you're unwilling to do that, then I guess, yeah, the next best option, I guess, is to bring in migrants to fill those positions instead. But at the same time, I don't know, even Bernier apparently not thinking about, what about that one that's living in the basement? You know, at some point in time, that person might want to be economically viable too. Well, what do you do if you bring in a mass influx of immigrants to fill out all the jobs, and this person all of a sudden decides, yeah, maybe I should start doing something, and there's no jobs available? Once again, like even Maxime still likes to play that politics game. Well, this is why, like I say, this is why I don't think I could ever go into politics, because I couldn't play these games. I get it. You've got to do this stuff, Maxime. I don't know why you would even want to be a politician. Really? I couldn't do it because I couldn't lie to the people. I'd have to tell them the kind of truth that I like to tell, which is why I would have been booed off the stage long ago, right? People don't like to hear the truth, folks. I know that, which is why my channel this day, after what, almost 3 years of doing this, I've got what, 5,000 subscribers? And I appreciate all you 5,000. I really do. You 5,000 are some of the greatest people I've ever met, and I really appreciate all the support you give me. But I'm like, come on, I live in a country of 37 million. 5,000 of you actually pay attention to anything I've got to say. And we live in the age of information where it's not too hard to share. So I get it. Like I say, I understand there's millions of Canadians that, they don't want to hear the truth. Why would they want to hear the truth? The truth completely destroys that fiction, that utopian world that they've built up in their mind. They keep them marching forward, being the mindless slaves and serfs to the ruling class in this country. Like I say, they've got to tell themselves something, folks. They've got to convince themselves to just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. Anyways, I was actually going to try to read this entire article, but you know what? I'm even starting to turn and pivot a little bit further away and not being such a big proponent or supporter of the PPC. At least for today, anyways, because to this stuff, and I've heard him say it too many times, like, stop using the economic migrant bullshit excuse. Stop fucking playing politics. I just wish everyone out there in the political landscape, that's the thing, they're all politicians. And here I am saying, hey, stop doing your thing. Stop being politicians. Actually, I'm the fool, I guess, for suggesting or thinking that politicians are going to stop lying to the people or catering or coddling them in some way, in some fashion, in some regard. I mean, Maxime is definitely much better than the rest out there, for sure. Well, of course, except for Tim Moen, the leader of the Libertarian Party of Canada. But, of course, you're never going to hear Tim Moen being reported by anyone in the established media because he would actually give truth like me. That's the thing. They're even willing to listen to Maxime because I guess he still plays that gray area, right? Still skirts that line where, yeah, I'm still a statist, but then he wants to throw his base the bone and say, oh no, I'm all about standing up against big government. I'll use it when it suits my purpose or when it's something that I agree with or it's something that I stand for, but hey, I don't, principle? No, not so much. Like I say, well, more principle than his counterparts, for sure. But fully principled? No, like I say, if I was Maxine, I'd just tell the Canadian people the absolute truth. Listen, either you got to start having kids, or you got to start getting your kids out of the basement, go out and filling some of these jobs or occupations, or just expect the country to be completely unrecognizable in just a few short decades if you don't. Like I say, I'm getting tired of the political posturing. I'd much rather people get the truth, but most people don't care about the truth. They want to be fed a line of bullshit on a continual and constant ongoing basis. I guess that's what they need to sustain them these days. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.